I've been running out of things to say. Do you wanna get high with me, baby? I know the Uber's on its way. He gon' call you up like underlay, lady. You're stressed out cause you working late. Talk a lot about that boss you hate lately. You open the door, you ain't got nowhere to go. Cause it's a hell of a ride.
We are back at Peppermill for one last vlog of 2019. I had thought that 2019 was actually going to be my best year ever in terms of overall poker results. Not going to be the case now, after that $8,000 downswing. But won't be too far off from norm. I'm not going to mention exactly how much that is because it'll be gossiped about here in a small town like Reno. But if you have to know, if you're someone who watches every vlog and feel like you just have to know, just come find me and I'll tell you. I think that's fair. Alright, so I'm not sure how good the game is going to be here today as usual, but hoping it'll be somewhat decent, prepared to grind it out for a few hours here at 1 o'clock before we actually get a better game later on, is what I would expect. We'll see if that actually plays out that way or not here at Peppermill.
It's a hell of a ride. It's a hell of a ride. Over the east side. It's a hell of a ride. Yeah. I don't wanna pay no mind. Speak up for the pride. 25 minutes of the night. Hoping the priorities align. Let me tell a little bit of mine.
The day did not start off as one where vlogging really even entered my mind. The game was primarily full of OMCs drinking Pellegrinos, which, parenthetically, I question. It seems a lot worse than regular water to me. But after playing for about 5 hours, I finally got into the 7 seats so I can vlog. The first hand comes when an OWC limps in the hijack, and I decide to attack it, because how else do you beat OWCs? I look at 8-10 of hearts in the cutoff, and make it 25. To my surprise, both blinds end up calling, as does the limper. So with 100 in, it comes ace-9-3 with 2 spades. It gets checked to me, and I'm not interested in bluffing into 3 people, so I check it back. The turn comes the 8 of diamonds, and again it checks to me. I figure anyone with an ace or an overpair of the 9 would have bet it already. So I actually figure to be good here quite a bit, but I do need to bet for equity protection. I make it 30, and all 3 players end up folding to that thin value bet. Next hand also comes when I'm in the cutoff. We get a limp from the same OWC, and I pick up king 10 of hearts and make it 25. It folds to her, and she calls. So with 50 in, it comes king 9-10 with 1 heart. She checks, and I bet 30 with my top 2 pair, and she calls pretty quickly. So with 120 in, the turn is really interesting. It comes another king, giving me kings full. Now she is about 700 in front of her here, and if she does have that case king, I want to get it all. There aren't many draws that she could have, and she's not the type to slow play a flopped straight. So I decided to bet 100. She thinks about it for a minute and lays it down. Now that play is a departure from the game plan for me. I usually play small ball and try to get a higher percentage of people's ranges to pay me off, so going for gold in that spot did not work out, but I'm not convinced that it was the wrong play. Next hand we get 2 limps, and I have king 7 offsuit in the small blind. I complete, so with 20 in, it comes king 7-9 with 2 hearts. I check, planning to check raise. The big blind bets 10, and both limpers call. I don't think 40 is enough, and I think 60 might be too much. So that leaves a clear-cut amount to bet. I throw in 2 green chips, and one by one, all 3 players throw their hands away. Later on, I'm playing 6-handed, and the cutoff open raises to 10. I have 8s on the button and make it 35. You could argue that just calling here is the better play, but I like taking control of the hand with an above-average hand. The small blind thinks for a minute and folds, and the big blind eagerly puts in his call after the tank ends. I figured that was a sign of strength, given that he only had 120 behind. I would be proven incorrect. The cutoff call, so with 105 in, the flop comes deuce of diamonds, 3 of clubs, 4 of spades. The big blind checks. The cutoff, donk leads into me for 30, and I decide to just call here. The big blind then jams all in for his 120, and the cutoff snap calls. So that's the OWC there. It's a pretty clear-cut fold for me here. I throw my hand away. The cutoff shows ace-5 of spades for the flop straight, and the big blind shows 3-6 of spades for a pair and a straight draw. The turn comes a queen, and the river comes a 5 to give him the bigger straight and the pot. He would go on to punt. Shocking, I know. Still six-handed, I pick up kings under the gun +1 and make it 20. Both blinds call, so with 60 in, it comes 3-4-6 rainbow. Checks to me, and I bet 35. The small blind, who is an unknown, raises to 75, and the big blind folds. I could listen to an argument for folding right now, but I don't think that's the right play the majority of the time, so I make the call. The big blind folds, so with 210 in, the turn is another 4, and he bets 150. I figured that was a decent turn card for me. If he had 5-6, I'm now ahead. If he flopped with straight, I'm at least not drawing dead, and if he has a smaller overpair, he would feel good about betting that turn, so I decided to call. So with 510 in, the river comes a queen, and now he bets 300. Obviously, I lose to queens as well as his other flopped monsters, and I don't think that he would do that with a smaller overpair. I also figured he would give up a lot of his bluffs on the river after I call his 150, so I decided ultimately to fold. It was shortly after that when the game got good. Real good. It was an odd collection of randoms rarely seen in Reno. Guys were playing any two cards. They were making very loose calls and often betting very large amounts that would only result of them getting called when they were beat. We played a hand where under the gun limped in and +1 called. The cutoff called as well, and I have pocket queens in the small blind and raised to 40. +1 calls, as does the cutoff. So with 120 in, we're 3 ways to a flop of jack, deuce, 3, 2 hearts. I bet 80 into 120, and just as expected, both players call. So with 360 in, the turn is a queen, giving me top set. I bet 160 here, which is less than half the pot, thinking that at least one of these guys will call with a draw, but knowing that I could lose a jack. Stunningly, both guys fold, and given the game flow at the time, it was probably the most surprised I've ever been in my entire life following 2 folds, and obviously pretty disappointing. Shortly after that, I lost with pocket kings again, when some dude called 50 pre-flop with ace-10 and hit his ace. Then a hand took place where he got 3 limps, and I have queen-jack in the small blind, and I squeezed to 45. The big blind calls quickly, and 2 of the 3 limpers call. So with 185 in, the flop comes slightly above average. 8, 9, 10, 2 spades. I elect to fast play it, betting 105. The big blind basically snap calls, and the other guys fold. So with 395 in, the turn is the 6 of spades. Obviously, he could have a lot of flushes here, but he could still have 1 pair hands that he doesn't want to fold, so I still have to bet. Just a bit smaller than I would on a blank. He calls, and we're heads up to a river, which comes another 10. That card I definitely like because he could have a lot of 10s. Of course, I'm still a little concerned he could be slow playing flush and would like to avoid going broke if so. So I bet $215, and he snap calls with king 7 offsuit for a turn straight. Later on, there was almost $30,000 on the table. And there was a live 30 on, which there had been in a lot of hands. The dude on my right was steaming out of his mind. He calls that 30, and I have ace queen of clubs under the gun 1. I decide to make it 115, and plus 2 cold calls. The straddle folds, and the steaming dude obviously is not folding. So a 375 in, the flop is 6-7 deuce, 2 spades, 1 club, and nobody bets. The turn is the deuce of clubs, and the steamer fires 300. So this is a really interesting spot. I mean, I think you could actually argue all 3 options here. Given that this dude is steaming and playing any 2 cards, you pick up the nut flush draw to go along with 2 overcards. I think folding is just ridiculous, though, based on game flow. But it is such a massive bet, and you only have ace high. We're playing 1,600 effective here, by the way, and I think it's a call I have to make. So that's what I do. With $975 in, the river is a disgusting 4 of diamonds. If it had come an ace or a queen, I'm calling whatever he bets. I'd already pretty much made up my mind there. And obviously the club would have been ideal, but he settles on a sizing of $800 here. I don't think I can hero call him with ace high, so I lay it down. And unfortunately for me, that was the start of a pretty brutal run. I'm not sure if there's actually a saying or not, but to quote Worm and Rounders, there ought to be one. And that saying should be something along the lines of, you book your biggest losses in the best games. I have never in my life played until 4 a.m. until December 27th, 2019. I was way up after running down those hands. Then I flopped a set of aces, and a guy who was absolutely steaming out of his mind turned a straight on me, and I lost about a $1,500 pot. Shortly after that, flopped a pair and a flush draw, which is always a recipe for disaster for me, and I lost about a $1,000 pot. Stayed around for about 4 more hours after that, ultimately booking a $560 loss. I could not stomach the notion of booking a loss in the best game that's come together at the Pepper Mill all year. But somehow, I have done exactly that. And I'm not going to lie to you. It hurts. Not just the 560, obviously that hurts. You just don't get too many of these opportunities.
You open the door,
and you hate not to take advantage of them.
'Cause it's a hell of a ride. 'Cause it's a hell of a ride. 'Cause it's a hell of a ride.
So that hat was given to me, sent here to Colaway News Now by a viewer of this vlog, Stacy, who made it clear that my hat collection was insufficient and added that Houston Fire hat to it. So my thanks to Stacy for that. All right, so I'm recording this about a week, over a week really, after the vlog that you saw on that Thursday night at Pepper Mill, which involved really one of the best games I've ever sat in. And in all honesty, I'm still kind of struggling to come to grips with the idea that I managed to book a loss in that game, but what can you do? Like I said before, I had high hopes about 2019 being my most profitable year ever at poker. It wasn't that, but it wasn't far off from average. And the only resolution I'm gonna have going in to 2020 is simply to make more than I did in 2019. But in all honesty, I'm pretty disappointed by my own play. Like, I feel like I'm just not playing good enough, and I just have to be honest with all of you about that. I feel like I've played too many hands, and I've let tilt get to me a couple of times, and I've stayed too late at night a couple of times, that obviously being one of them, though the game was so good that might not even be the best example to point to of that. But those are all things I got to get around. I just got to be better, and I'm going to do everything I can in 2020 to be better. And the other unfortunate thing for me was on New Year's Day, I did not vlog that day, but somehow I managed to book a $2,000 loss, largely due to a hand where one of the most notorious action players called my 3-bet pre-flop with Jack 6 when I had pocket kings and flopped 2-pair. And then another action player managed to river a straight when I had flopped a set and I'd got a ton of money in before the river, and I mistakenly paid him off. The details not really that important. Starting the year in a $2,000 hole obviously sucks. So, got work to do there as well. But, as we wrap up this vlog, let's point out the good news, shall we? San Francisco 49ers are the #1 seed in the NFC. And as I record this, they're awaiting the Minnesota Vikings. And they could be on track for the Super Bowl, which is pretty amazing because considering they were 45-1 before the year to win the Super Bowl. And I don't bet, but I was very close to betting that because I thought to myself, I think they're an 11-5 team. That's what I thought. Turns out they're better than that, 13-3 team. So let's hope they can keep it going. That's going to wrap it up for this edition of the vlog. As always, thank you for watching. Please hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you back here next time.
It's a